Got our guest in studio, Gareth. Gareth, let me just check if your mic's on. Just check there.
Yeah, hello.
I once did an interview with a water polo player, and she essentially told me all about her passion, her pride, and everything for the sport for 3 minutes, and no one really heard what she was talking about. But hey, we move on. Okay, Gareth, what do you do with all our guests that come in, whether it be on over Skype or in studio? We give them a chance to intro themselves properly. So therefore, we don't miss anything, and I don't give you some title that's not actually yours. So, what is it that you do exactly for USN?
I'm the National Training Manager, so pretty much what I do is I deal with retail-based training for our customers. That's some of our leading retailers in South Africa. I manage African-based training for the distributor network there. I also work with our UK European distributors and Australia. So that's a small segment, but I also look after our sponsored athletes in terms of their dietary requirements, their supplementation strategies, a little bit into recovery. Because of my background, I'm a sports scientist by trade, but also a little bit of a specialist in sports nutrition. I have got a CISSN qualification.
Well, that was my first question. You must be hugely educated or just hugely smart, because I originally saw Gareth at that Vitality Summit that I went to a few weeks back, and there was just so much sporting stuff on the go there, from the technical side of sport to the marketing side to everything you could possibly think of. And Gareth put in quite a difficult panel with some sports scientists and experts and kind of like old school guys and a couple of new school renegades. There was a cyclist on this, so he fell foul of something. And then there was also people who actually test all the supplements as far as like a standardization kind of board. And Gareth was almost seen as the black sheep amongst these people because it was like this big company, okay? So when you say USN, I know I took supplements last year because I was doing the PS Beast challenge. Of course, PS Beast is one of your athletes.
Yeah,
You said
that's
you
right.
consult with the guys and give them all they need.
Yeah.
I basically wanted to do a challenge whereby I still am an average guy, an average sports guy, and how can I actually become a sportsman, so to speak? So I did this challenge. Pierre did this thing with Virgin Active. It was a couple of exercises, but essentially what they did, and it's a loophole I kind of took advantage of. They essentially put Pierre in a studio, and they told him, okay, Pierre, do these 8 things or whatever, and then we're going to time you. And then we can get all the members out there to try to beat you. Now, Pierre's a much bigger individual than I am, so his range of motion is obviously much longer. Anyway, I knew I was going to win. Okay, I'm just going to admit that right up front, because I'm smaller and quicker. Anyway, but Pierre's 6 years younger than me. I should really give myself more credit for this. Anyway, so I chatted to USN back then, and I was curious. I was very curious as to what the supplements do and how they can enhance my training. And I learned quite a lot about it because I went and just tried it all out. Now, for your average person out there who doesn't have the luxury, I suppose, of just going and like getting all the products you need, something that I think is quite difficult is what do you do and how do you do it? Now, what we've got Gareth in the studio here for today is because I'm starting to see a huge amount of school kids getting into this. And then there's always the big danger. Some people say supplementation is the gateway to heavier, like sort of actual substance abuse. And again, misconceptions abound. Now, Gareth, I just want to open up by saying, why exactly do athletes use supplements, and what does it do for them in the sporting sort of realm that they live in?
Okay, so you're isolating it to professional athletes.
Yeah, let's go with that. So essentially, a kid's going to go to his parents and say, I want to be better and I need to do this. Okay. What exactly is it that's going to help him out?
Okay. In terms of children's sport, I think it's very, very difficult. There's ethical boundaries there that supplement brands cannot cross. It's not that supplementation hasn't necessarily been tested in individuals under the age of 18. It's just that you're selling them the perception that taking a product's going to make them better without reviewing their basic dietary requirements, without reviewing are they training properly, are they meeting their sleep requirements. And the basic health questionnaire hasn't been followed. There hasn't been advice or guidance around are you meeting your macro score, is your micronutrient intake adequate, are you taking enough omega oils in. That hasn't been met, and you've really got coaches pushing for performance, for results, because they want to stay in their job next year. You've got parents who want kids to perform at a high level because they want them to be both academic and sporting, so that there may be options for them in university going up through, to maybe acquiring some type of scholarship locally or overseas. So there's challenges in that, is that we're not allowed, we don't really go out and speak to school kids. We don't want to do that because we don't want to be seen to be saying, well, you need to take supplements in order to perform. But if we don't go and speak to them, then they're going to go their own way and listen to the peers and make bad informed choices.
Exactly, because there's this thing, protein gives me the muscles. I'm just going to take it. But I mean, then you got kidney concerns after that if you don't know what you're doing.
I mean, there's nothing really wrong with taking a dietary protein. The thing is, if you have an underlying kidney condition, so there's renal failure already there that you may not be aware of, then taking additional protein may make that condition worse. But in general, your body metabolizes protein very efficiently. Protein breakdown to amino acid does occur very, very well. And then in terms of how it's used, I mean, protein doesn't just float around your bloodstream. You've got a very small amino acid pool inside your bloodstream, and it is used for many thousands of functions, from hormonal control, appetite control. The majority of the protein that you consume, or let's say around about 30%, proteins are highly thermogenic food. So it means when you consume it, it actually burns more energy to digest it than what's in the product itself. So uptake could be anywhere from 65 to 75%. The rest will be burnt just to metabolize it, just to get it into your system.
Right.
There's no concerns about kidney health. There's never been a study that links kidney health in a normal, healthy individual and excessive protein intake, or moderately excessive. Let's not say excessive, because I mean, if you're taking 400 grams of protein a day and you only really require 200, then you're doing something stupid anyway.
Well, exactly, yeah.
And that's one of the challenges with schoolboys, is there's the belief that more is better. And they don't approach supplementation or diet from a really structured viewpoint. They don't go and consult with dietitians, sports dietitians, because there's very few around. They don't come and consult with sports nutritionists. And they very rarely get in touch with the companies of the product they're using. What they do is they'll go to an outlet and get advice from someone on the floor, a sales consultant, who just wants to push product your way.
Well, exactly, yeah.
And
Then
then
to make some money.
yeah, and then you end up with a 15-year-old taking creatine and a hardcore weight gainer, which is not ideal. So taking one step back, I mean, the function of supplementation there is to assist with meeting your basic macro requirements, meeting your micro requirements, helping with recovery and performance. Those are the core goals. The problem is it's open to abuse.
Okay, Gareth, unfortunately you are actually a little bit too clever and you're a little bit jumping the gun here. Because I think you've just covered pretty much all my questions in one foul swoop.
I think he anticipated the next 8 and answered them.
Okay, so just getting into it. Now, so you say, obviously, is there an age where you would advise supplementation to take in? As far as, what is the minimum age?
Well, I mean, supplementation it's considered to be anything that's not on your plate. So just taking an energy drink or a sports drink, that's considered to be a supplement. A multivitamin, mineral, essential fatty acid is a supplement.
Sure.
So if you have a look at the very basic stuff, vitamins, minerals and fats, probably from about 14, 15 years and older, you can start to have a look at that. You have to have a look at what the child's eating. If they're eating high starch-based meals, let's say that a micronutrient deficit in there, so it's like pastas and stuff that's not really got any nutrient value but lots of calories, then they would need to have something in there to get the micronutrients in. In terms of performance-based supplements, sports-based supplements, we recommend generally from 18 and older.
Okay.
But that's standing in your ivory tower in a perfect world. And it's not a perfect world that we live in. There are challenges. I mean, school kids, they're under more pressure to perform. They're consuming lower quality foods. Everything you find in the supermarkets is highly processed. An interesting study done in Harvard is 75 to 80% of the foods you find in retailers didn't exist 50 years ago.
Wow.
That's because it's mass manufactured from something else. So all the goodness is taken out and put in a box and sold to you. So, I suppose if it's a high performance issue, and there is really a demand for it and there's no other way except to supplement, then have a consultation session with someone that really knows what they're talking about, that can manage the health aspects of that.
But now you've touched on it a couple of times in what you've been saying. It's just that if you're going to go to the lengths of wanting to take this on as part of your sporting regime, not only is it just wise, like safety wise, to go there, but it's also getting the most out of it. Because if you're going to go and spend money on this stuff, and let's be quite honest, if you're going to put a big amount of supplementation into your sort of sporting training, it's quite expensive, especially with decent stuff. You don't want to just dick around with some, lean pro thing you find in clicks. You want to get stuff that's been scientifically tested and is being used out there by various athletes, okay? So now, it makes a lot of sense if you're going to go this far, go all the way. Now, if you were a parent, okay, essentially, now, I would like parents to get more knowledge in this, because I think a lot of the time they just think, well, again, like you said, as long as the kid's in the A team, as long as he's doing well, I'm sure this stuff's not going to harm him. It's not so much about the harm, it's about getting the most out of it. Now, when you say sleep, that's obviously a big thing.
Massive.
Nutrition, people must always realize that it's supplementation, as in it's not a primary, it's more of a secondary thing, right?
Exactly, yeah. So you've got to get the basics right. I mean, it is about food and exercise first. Then you assess the nutritional shortfall in that individual's diet. I mean, I'm not so much of a fan of counting calories. I don't think that counting calories is the ideal way to go when you're structuring.
That's what neurotic housewives do anyway.
Yeah, and then what you do is you end up eating a chocolate bar and you end up starving yourself for the rest of the day to meet your calorie score. So rather just eat
housewife
healthy.
Guilt for schoolboys. Yeah.
It's simple. I mean, if you're just going high protein, and you manage your carbs and fats based on how you feel and your perceived level of performance, that's the good way to go for general eating purposes. And then, around supplementation, you have to build in on a needs requirement basis. It's about assessing what is going on with that individual. Do they need to do more? Is there a way that I can get a product that suits that person's requirements to accelerate performance? And then basically what you are saying is that supplementation does come secondary to that. And it's 100% correct. That's why when you have a look at it, just get the very basic structures right. Foundation must be perfect.
Okay, so again, she's like a very lot of questions after that. So you've gone through potential risk of supplementation, and as you said, these things are safe because they've been tested as well. And it's not like you're suddenly going to go into renal failure and all the other things. Again, it's this ignorance that if you take on more protein, your kidneys can't use it, and then therefore they pack up. I've heard this theory from many people.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's also come back to like bodybuilders back in the 80s. I mean, it's a stereotypical kind of thing that if you want to have weight gain, then that's it. You're going to like Jonah Lomu as well.
Yeah, I think, the problem is that supplements have been gathered together with steroids, and they've kind of been grouped as one. Where you go to Europe and Australia and the US, there is clear separation there. And it really comes down to who's wanting to be involved in the industry, what are the offshoots of the industry. And unfortunately, I mean, steroid abuse is real. It's out there. And the thing is, when you have a look at parents who are entering into discussions with the kids around supplementation use, often they're very negative, and they kind of push back and they say it's not an option for you. Now, because the kid can't access good quality supplementation through traditional means, i.e. going to the retailer and letting the parents spend some money on product, they will acquire banned substance or prohibited substance through other means, because often it is cheaper. But the risks associated to that are shocking. I mean, you've seen a huge increase in steroid abuse, banned substance abuse in schools.
Oh, sure.
And the problem is that it's going linked back to supplements the whole time. Supplement companies being blamed for it because of the gateway theory. It's a theory. It's never been proven.
Well, exactly.
For me, it's saying that, water's going to make you an alcoholic. So everyone stop drinking water because it's a gateway. I don't believe it. You've got to look at it. You've got to be educated when you're picking up on supplementation. You have got to decide, well, this is a strategy that I'm going to take. No, it's a long-term strategy to get to your goal. Stick to it and improvise as required. But, don't blame supplementation for all of the negatives associated to steroid or banned substance abuse, which is currently what's happening.
But it's funny, all these things just come back to basic education and just being realistic with it. So you say, look, it's a long-term goal. What supplementation is, well, rather say what it isn't you buying a tub of something and 4 weeks later you're going to be better than you ever thought you could be. Because how do you sustain that? If you are going to take supplements, again, jump in here. This is just from my personal experience, added with your input. If you are going to take supplementation, it's a choice you make in order how you're going to bring it into your day-to-day regime. So my next question would be, is there a time period that you should be taking supplementation, or is it, if you do it properly, could you do it for extended time?
Yeah, you could do it for extended time. There's no reason with that. I think one of the best studies done around creatine supplementation was with USN in the States, where they did a long-term creatine usage at low volume, so it's only 3 grams. It's very, very small. Most supplement companies would encourage you to take 10 to 20 grams a day because they want to get more into you so that they can sell more product next time around. And this study was done over 7 years, and they found no change in renal function, which is massive.
Now, over 7 years. I remember when creatine first came about, it was, I think, mid-90s.
Yeah, that's right.
And rugby players first started taking it.
We were under a lot of pressure. I was to take it in high school as well. It was being thrown around.
It was always a buzzword back then, taking creatine. But this was like basic stuff. We put it in the grape juice, and that was it.
Yeah,
I remember we'd always used to go off and play like those Afrikaans schools, like Paul, Jim, Paul boys, and there would always be a thing like, "Oh, these oaks take creatine from standard 8 onwards." But again, it was a stigma around it, and everyone said, "Well, don't take it because no one knows what it's going to be like in 10 years." So it was like there was this. It's just clouds of uncertainty. But as you say, been tested for 7 years, no sign of renal failure.
Nothing.
And creatine essentially is what your body produces naturally, right?
Yeah, your body makes quite a bit of it. Your muscle will store between 3.5 and 4 grams per kilogram. So per kg of muscle, you'll have 3.5 to 4 grams of creatine in your muscle cell. Your body makes pretty much low dosages. It makes around about 4 to 6 grams a day, depending on the individual and how heavy they are. But creatine forms a part of a very important energy cycle. That's your ATP, PC. That's adenosine triphosphate phosphocreatine. All very complicated. But ATP is the energy system for the cell. Now, if you can supplement with extra creatine, and it will store as a phosphate in the muscle cell, which is what you want to do. Because what it does is it helps to reload energy during your rest time. So if you're doing a set of weights, you can do it maybe 10 reps, you put the weights down, you rest 30 seconds. ADP, which is a diphosphate, bonds back onto phosphocreatine to regenerate ATP, which is what you're looking for. That's the energy cycle of the cell.
But again, you're tying back to the whole time is this isn't a foreign thing your body suddenly has to bring in. You're mimicking certain things and you're basically enhancing and supplementing.
Yeah.
Again, that word supplementation, you can get so much out of it. If you're ever curious about what it is, look at the root of the word. Now, fortunately, guys, we can't go on for a hell of a lot longer. We're going to need to get into a lot of rugby talk just now. But now, if I am, again, I didn't realize I was going to go so heavy into the schools, but again, it's just the misconceptions at the right sort of place. If I was, say, 17, I know my girlfriend says I look 17 when I shave. If I was a young kid and I wanted to kind of do better in a little bit of rugby, and if it's a size game, what would you suggest I do right from now? As far as how supplementation could make me, say, put on a kilogram or two of muscle, or just make me slightly stronger.
Okay.
Because that's exactly the first thing people say is, I want to get bigger, I want to get stronger. Those are the two things. How would I go about that by incorporating supplementation?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a size game anymore with rugby. I think if you have a look at some of the best players in the world at the moment, they're not necessarily the biggest. It's their range of motion is improved. They're quicker off the mark. It's a bit of a running sport now, but yeah, definitely the perception in schoolboy rugby is
Have you
size
seen how
and
skinny
power.
I am? I need some.
Yeah, you'd be a great sevens player if you can run quicker than everyone else. But I think schoolboy rugby, it is the perception about if you're bigger, then you're stronger, which means you're better. Talent is one thing, size is different. It's not exactly the same thing. But when it comes down to it, have a chat with your coach. Understand what your shortfalls are. If the coach is telling you that you need to gain a little bit of weight to be competitive in your position, then go back to the strength and conditioning coach. Ask them, what can I be doing? What type of program can I be following? Now, there's also another myth out there that if you start weight training, you're going to stunt growth. It's a load of rubbish. I've never seen it happen in any science journal. I mean, your bones cap at 18. Vertical growth is really genetic. There's a few exceptions, but it's generally genetic. And then after that, have a chat with your parents. I think that's one of the most important things. A lot of kids try and hide it from their parents, and then they're going to use supplementation on the sly, in the school locker or whatever. They've got products there, and they don't know how to use it. They don't know why they're using it. They just want to grow.
It's just nothing to be ashamed of, though. So exactly, you must be open about it, and then get the best out of it.
And then get advice from people that matter. If you're really concerned, chat to your doctor, chat to a sports dietitian, chat to a nutritionist. Get some valuable insight there. Don't necessarily talk to someone who wants to push a product onto you to make a sale. Understand why you're taking it, understand what it does, what its function is, how it's going to help you, and then you have to remain consistent. You have to, if you are eating 5 meals a day, which has an effect on your calorie score, it's helping you sort of protein pulse into your system, balance out your blood sugar level, and then all of a sudden you stop that and eat 2 meals a day, there will be a metabolic change, which means there will be a loss in muscle mass and maybe a gain in fat mass. So it is about consistency. It's what makes great sports people is that they're consistent. What makes you guys good on the radio. You're consistently great on a Tuesday.
Oh, thanks,
Ego
Gareth.
being stroked in the
Talk
morning.
about finishing on a high. Okay, so look, I'm going to put some of these points down. I think Gareth really has shed a lot of light out there. If you are looking to take supplementation on, first and foremost, it is not illegal. It's not something to be ashamed of. If you're out front with it, like you said, talk to your parents first. Talk to your strength and conditioning coaches. Do the things that are natural first, because this isn't a quick fix. This isn't you just going down to Clicks or Dischem or whatever, spending $1,000 on something you're not entirely sure, but you like what the guy looks like on the wrapper. That's not what supplementation is. Supplementation is something that you add to enhance where you're going in your sport and how you can be a little bit better, but just through logic as well. Your body produces all these great things, but you can't always get the most out of it. Supplementation is a nice add-on. Something I also liked as well is the convenience about the supplementation. Because when it comes down to it, you can get everything you need from good food. So if you are going out there and buying the right things, you can always get the right amount of protein, that kind of stuff. But if you're working in an office 9 to 5, or you're doing something, or you're traveling as well, there's no way you can quickly pop into your kitchen and make something that's high in protein, low GI, all that kind of stuff.
I think that's probably one of the challenges with professional athletes as well, is that they train so often that if you needed, let's say, 35 grams of protein and 100 grams of carbs and 35 or 40 grams of fat in your diet at a certain time, for you to get that in and assimilate that and digest that before half an hour before you're getting back on the field for another session, you're going to struggle. The advantage with protein, pre-digested, absorbs very, very quickly, it's in a liquid form.
Oh.
So it just makes it a lot more convenient and functional for you. And it's not designed to replace food. It's designed to support those periods of time where you're struggling to meet the calorific score. So,
well, there it is, nice and simple. So if you do have any issues around supplementation, you want to get going in that, Gareth, on Twitter, where can we find you?
At USN SA or GJ__Powell, POWELL.
Okay, so you can use those 2 Twitter handles. I know from Twitter, I know from LB as well, who asks, LB Heldness says, Gareth, what does it feel like to have the best job in the world?
It's amazing. Best company in the world.
Well, I'll be there. You go. If you do have any sort of burning questions towards supplementation and just getting going with it, then chat to these guys on Twitter. They are very helpful, and of course they're very knowledgeable, so they can give you answers very quickly. Don't feel shy as well. Twitter's there for a reason.
And keen to give you the answer, because you're
Keen
worried
to give you the
about
answer.
people being misinformed. It's part of the thing. It's not like
Exactly.
you're going to clog them with unwanted problems if you have a query.
But just remember, you need a good base for supplementation, and I think that goes for no matter what levels of sport you want to get involved in. It isn't something that it's going to be the Hail Mary of all things for you. So yeah, chat to these guys and approach with caution, but you do know that these things are going to have a good benefit for you in the long run. Gareth, unfortunately, we have to stop there. My mind's already kind of racing as far as what we're going to do for the next 5 minutes to get this interview in. But thank you so much for coming through, and thank you so much for the drinks, our USN Hardcore Energy. Very, very tasty. It's a lot better than we had last week, Ashwell.
Oh, it sure is.
Thank you, guys.
Cool.
Wait,
So
are you sponsored by the guys we had last week?
no.
No, then it was way better than the
No.
stuff we had last week.
No, Comfort just gave it to us, I think. Anyway, so catch Gareth on the Twitter, and then also at Twitter at USNSA. Gareth, thanks.